This story didn't scream for attention, but signs were always there, you just need to look closer. This is Hidden Witness. 10 terrifying haunted woods stories, deep forest horror story. There are forests where people get lost. There are forests where animals refuse to go. And then there are forests where something seems to be waiting for you. Tonight we're going deep into the woods. 10 terrifying stories. 10 encounters that should never have happened. Some involve strange lights. Some involve voices. Some involve people who disappeared. And one involves something that was never supposed to be there in the first place. So turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and let's begin. A vast dark forest at midnight, narrow dirt trail disappearing between enormous pine trees, thick fog crawling along the ground, faint distant lantern light between the trees, no people visible, ominous deep woods atmosphere, cinematic supernatural horror, photorealistic dramatic moonlight, 16:9, no text. I was hiking alone when I heard someone say my name. Daniel. I turned around. Nobody. I kept walking. A few minutes later. Daniel. This time the voice was closer. I turned again. Still nothing. Then I remembered something my grandfather used to tell me. If you hear your name in the woods, don't answer. I kept walking. Then I heard my own voice behind me. Daniel, wait for me. I ran. I didn't stop until I reached my car. When I looked back toward the trees, there was someone standing between them. It looked exactly like me. Young hiker alone on a narrow forest trail at night, flashlight illuminating tall trees, dense darkness behind him, subtle human silhouette far in the background, mist, cinematic horror realism, 16:9. My friends and I were camping deep in the woods. Around midnight, we noticed a campfire about 50 yards away. We hadn't seen anyone nearby. We walked toward it. There were 4 chairs around the fire, and 4 sleeping bags. Everything looked recently used. Then we noticed photographs scattered on the ground. They showed people sitting around that exact fire. The last photograph showed us, standing exactly where we were. The date on the photograph was tomorrow. We left immediately. We never found out who took the picture. Abandoned campfire glowing in the middle of a dark forest at night, empty folding chairs arranged around it, backpack lying nearby, thick fog between trees, eerie orange firelight, supernatural horror, photorealistic, 16:9. Every night a strange light appeared in the forest behind my house. It looked like a lantern. I assumed someone was walking through the woods. One night I followed it. The light moved deeper into the forest. I followed. Then it stopped. I walked closer. There was no lantern. Just an old tree. And carved into the bark were words. You followed IT too. Underneath were dozens of names. Some were decades old. One was mine. Mysterious pale lantern-like light floating between tall forest trees at night. Lone person watching from a trail, heavy fog, deep black woods, eerie supernatural atmosphere, cinematic photorealism, 16:9. I got lost during a hiking trip. After several hours, I found a cabin. Someone was inside. I knocked. An elderly woman opened the door. She told me I could stay until morning. The next day, I thanked her and left. When I returned to the area with rescuers, there was no cabin, only trees. I showed them a photograph I'd taken. They became silent. One ranger finally said, "That cabin burned down 30 years ago. The woman who lived there had died inside. Old wooden cabin hidden deep inside a foggy forest, warm light glowing through windows, mysterious open front door, abandoned-looking surroundings, cinematic supernatural horror, photorealistic, 16:9. I was walking back to my campsite when I heard footsteps behind me. I stopped. They stopped. I walked. They walked. I ran. They ran. Finally, I turned around. Nothing. But when I looked down, there were footprints. They were following mine. Not behind me. Beside me. as if someone invisible had been walking directly next to me. The footprints continued all the way to my tent, then stopped. Close-up of muddy human footprints appearing on a forest trail behind a terrified hiker. No person visible, moonlight, wet leaves, dense trees, eerie atmosphere, cinematic, horror realism, 16. 9. I saw a little girl standing beside the trail. She couldn't have been more than 8. I asked if she was lost. She pointed deeper into the woods. My house is that way. I told her I'd help. She smiled. Then she said, "You shouldn't come with me." Before I could respond, she disappeared. I reported the encounter. The ranger showed me an old missing person poster. It was her. The photograph was taken 20 years earlier. Small, mysterious girl standing alone among tall pine trees at dusk, wearing an old faded dress, face partially hidden by hair, fog around her feet, lone hiker watching from a distance, eerie cinematic supernatural horror, 16. 9. Every night at exactly 1:00 a.m., someone whistled outside my tent. 3 notes. Always the same melody. I never looked outside. On the 4th night, the whistling stopped. Then I heard a voice. "Can I come in?" I stayed silent. The voice came again. This time, it sounded exactly like my own voice. "Can I come in?" Then my phone vibrated. A message appeared. From my own number. "Don't open the tent." I didn't. Something stayed outside until sunrise. Dark forest at night with a lone camper sitting inside a tent, mysterious silhouette standing outside among the trees, moonlight and fog, unsettling atmosphere, cinematic realistic horror, 16. 9. I went camping alone. When I woke up in the morning, there was another tent beside mine. I hadn't seen it the night before. It was old, dirty, and completely empty. Inside, I found a backpack, a notebook, and a map. The map showed my campsite, but there was something circled in red. My tent. The notebook contained one sentence. "If the second tent appears, leave before dark." I packed everything. I left immediately. I never camped there again. 2 camping tents in a dark forest clearing at night, one belonging to the narrator and another mysterious old tent appearing nearby, faint light inside it, fog, tall trees, eerie supernatural horror, photorealistic, 16. 9. Every evening I saw a man standing at the tree line. He never moved. I assumed he was a hunter. One night I waved. He didn't respond. The next evening he was closer. The following night, he was standing outside my house. I called the police. They searched the property. Nobody. But the next morning, I found a note on my porch. It said, "Don't wave next time." I moved the following week. Tall man standing completely still at the edge of a dark forest. Face hidden in shadow, lone person watching from a distant cabin porch. Fog between trees, unsettling supernatural mystery, cinematic photorealism, 16. 9. The last story is the one I still think about. I returned to the woods where I used to hike as a child. Everything looked familiar. The trail, the creek, the old trees. But something had changed. There were names carved into the trees. Hundreds of them. I recognized some. People who had disappeared over the years. Then I saw one that made my heart stop. My own name. I touched the carving. It was fresh, still bleeding sap. Then I heard footsteps behind me. I turned. Nobody. Another set of footsteps came from the other direction. Then another. Then dozens. I looked around. Figures were standing between the trees. All of them watching me. And then a voice whispered, "You came back." I ran. I never returned. But sometimes, when I look at photographs from that trip, I notice something standing behind me. Something that wasn't there when the photograph was taken. Terrified hiker standing in an endless dark forest surrounded by trees marked with hundreds of names, faint ghostly figures between the trees, thick fog, moonlight, surreal supernatural horror, cinematic photorealism, 16. 9. Maybe the woods are just woods. Maybe every sound has an explanation. Maybe every shadow is only a tree. But if you've ever spent a night completely alone in the deep woods, you know how quickly your mind begins to question what is real. So if you're ever hiking after dark, and you hear someone calling your name, don't answer. If you see a light between the trees, don't follow it. And if you ever find a second campsite beside yours, leave before sunset. Because some forests are beautiful during the day. But after midnight, you might discover that you're not the only one walking between the trees. This is Hidden Witness. Subscribe for more dark mysteries, unexplained encounters, and terrifying stories. And remember, some things are better left unseen. The end. Endless dark forest at midnight, empty trail disappearing into fog, faint silhouettes hidden between trees, distant moonlight, unsettling quiet atmosphere, cinematic supernatural horror, photorealistic, 16. 9. Thanks for watching. If you saw what others missed, join the Hidden Witness. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the shadows.